The hardest part of faith is not prayer, but forgiving. I had always been told that family was sacred and that keeping it together was essential for Christians. My case is poignant because I was touched in my faith. My ability to forgive was seriously shaken. My name is Josefa, and here is my story. Before we continue with the story, do not forget to click on the notification button in order to get notified at every new video posted. May God bless you. I grew up in a ghetto in Jamaica with my small family consisting of my father, my mother, and my younger sister. Life was not always rosy, but we were happy. Dad was a Citibank security chief and a part-time gardener. His talents helped us to have a reliable food self-sufficiency. Mom, on the other hand, did petty trading, which my sister and I sometimes supervised when she was away. In my free time, I went to church and devoted myself to my favorite hobby, which was dancing. This passion accompanied me through my secondary education, and I continued to practice when I entered public university. It was during a dance competition that I met Matthias, a three-time urban dance medalist. He was so talented that I was impressed. We got closer and then coupled. I knew it was inappropriate, but because of my Christian identity, but it was so empowering that I forgot my principles. Besides, he was so attractive. I can't count how many times I had to fight with other girls because they were being around him. Matthias was a school dropout, unemployed, and had friends with un-Catholic habits. But I was convinced that by being around him, I would end up having an influence on him. I had the faith that I would change him and that he would give his life to Jesus. As we got together, I gradually lost my virtue. I gradually broke down the barriers that the Christian life had built around me in favor of the desire to be considered valid by my boyfriend. Not a week went by that I didn't fight with a girl just because of the flirts discovered with Matthias. Ridicule had become my shadow, but my love for him blinded me. One day, in tears, I asked him why so much infidelity, and he replied, "I have to be honest with you. If I'm not faithful to you, it's because we have never had an intimate relationship." "But Matthias, I am a Christian. I can't lose my purity before marriage," I replied. But he didn't want to hear anything. He said back to me, "Since I cannot satisfy myself with you, I will continue to cheat on you." Desperate, I went to talk to my sister about it to get a neutral opinion, and she told me that I would lose nothing by bending my principles if I really cared about him. What I did. The following week, I went to Matthias, ready to take action. He was happy, and I was hoping that it would be enough for him to become loyal and decide to change, but I was wrong. A month later, I surprised Matthias again at home with a girl, and it pissed me off. I was in pain. My heart was in shreds. I didn't even have strength to fight this time. I left in tears. I told my sister about it. She consoled me and reassured me. Weeks later, I discovered that I was pregnant with Matthias. It was one more slap that life had given to me. I didn't know what to do. Moreover, I was afraid to tell my parents about it. Dad was going to be so disappointed. I didn't want to break his heart, and I would have been an insult to the Christian upbringing that he has instilled in me. So my sister and I took money from my mother's small business and found a clandestine abortionist in Kingston. She helped me get rid of my pregnancy at a symbolic price. During the whole process, my sister held my hand and supported me. We had agreed to keep this a secret. Despite the physical and moral pain of taking a life, I went back to university. I got my life back together and graduated. 2 months after graduating, I got a job as a senior accountant at a bank. Mom and Dad were so proud that they held a Thanksgiving Mass at the church. It was during this celebration that I met my husband. He lived in the United States but was visiting Jamaica and had come to our church because he was a devout Christian. With him, it went very quickly, and we hooked because of our principles, which were the same, and his faith, which seduced me. He had to return to his country, but he promised that he would stay in touch. Promise kept, because 2 months later he came back to see my parents and surprised me by asking me to marry him. Of course, I accepted his request, and we started the procedure of marriage and the change of nationality at the embassy. In no time, I was moving to the United States with my husband, and everything was wonderful. I was able to find a stable job, and I joined his church. Everything was perfect. Our first year was devoted exclusively to our couple. We got to know each other better and grew in faith. The following year, we decided to have a child. The pregnancy project was more complicated than expected, but we didn't waste any effort. I knew exactly why conceiving a baby was difficult for me. I decided not to divulge the truth. I made the choice to let my husband hope, so we went from one doctor to the other to find a solution. It was at the heart of this battle that my little sister obtained a scholarship for the United States, which of course my husband and I instigated. Since we had the nationality, it was easy to get her to come. 2 months after the visa arrangements and paperwork were finalized, my sister was here. Beside the work to show her around the city we lived in, she had again become my confidant, the one I turned to tell the frustrations caused by my infertility. I was dejected and full of regrets for having an abortion a few years earlier. I was reaping the fruits of my stubbornness and blind love for the wrong person. If only I had held fast to my Christian values, I wouldn't be here today. While I mentally beat myself up with regrets, my sister as always consoled me and reassured me that everything would be fine. So I gained confidence and went back to consulting various doctors in the hope that one of them would help me give birth and honor my husband. I devoted myself, body and soul, to this cause, to the point of relegating the rest of the world to the background. Meanwhile, my sister continued to find her bearings in the city. Between her school and her new friends, her days seemed busy. We only saw each other at evening at dinner. Over time, my husband began to be distant, but I understood him. It must have been very frustrating to live in the midst of this emotional turmoil. My sister, on the other hand, seemed more and more haughty to me. But hey, she must have had internal battles going on. So I didn't worry. I was more concerned by saving my husband's honor. That was my priority. This priority was shattered one full day when, on my way to work, I forgot a company audit file at home. The tension was hellish at the office, so I had no choice but to turn back. Back home, I found my husband's vehicle still parked. In the process, I entered, in a hurry to get my hands on this file in order to end my day, which had already started badly. When I walked in, what did I see? My sister and my husband entwined in the sofa. My heart stopped beating. I didn't even have the words. I just stood there, petrified. What struck me the most was the indifference of my husband and sister. They looked at me straight in the eye, with no sign of regret whatsoever. This is where my husband stood up and said, "She told me everything, your previous relationship and your abortion, which by the way is the reason why you can't have kids." In tears I answered, "Dennis, I can explain everything." He interrupted me. "Listen, Josefa, I don't want to know anything. From the beginning you knew the cause of your infertility, but out of malice you didn't tell me anything. Plus, I can't share my life with a woman who had deliberately killed an innocent. I am leaving you." I was bruised. I looked at my sister, hoping that she would say something, but she was stoic. I left the house with this cold feeling that came not only from the surrounding weather, but also from the betrayal that I have been a victim of. I burst in tears in the streets, crying out to God, asking Him why so much pain. Passers-by looked at me with questioning eyes, but I was in too much pain to give them importance. I moved out a few days later, leaving them the house. I took an apartment north of the town, trying to heal my wounds. Having learned from my past mistakes, I took a trip to see my parents and told them the whole truth about my past life, in addition to what happened with my sister, and they supported me without judgment. But one of their recommendations was to meet my sister, to talk to her, so I could forgive her and move on. Such was the action to be taken by the soul that had been touched by the Almighty, which I did. Deep down, my sister told me that she did that despicable act because she was consumed by envy. She coveted my life and the graces I enjoyed. I gave her forgiveness despite the pain and insisted that we meet our pastor for spiritual support. My sister and I had a prayer program to entrust our situation to God. Over time, I understood that God is the very archetype of absolute love and forgiveness. Just as in the Bible, Joseph forgave his brothers who sold him into slavery, I forgave my sister who, blinded by envy, hurt me.